Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to the Home and Homestead. If you're new, I'm Rebecca. Today we're going to be doing some refrigerator pickling. We're going to quick pickle some red onions. And we can do these in two different ways. We can do a traditional pickled red onion, or we could do a Mediterranean flavored pickled red onion. And both of these are refrigerator pickling, so they will be stored in the refrigerator and do not require any water bath canning to do this process. So let's head over to the stovetop where we can get our brine ready for making some refrigerator pickled red onions. So the inspiration for this refrigerator pickling project can be found in the Ball Canning Back to Basics Cookbook on page 180. And they have a Mediterranean refrigerator pickled project, and then in that recipe they list a number of different vegetables you can use either in combination or you could just take out one of them, and that's what I'll be doing today. So I'll be doing some refrigerator pickled red onions. So you can make the brine like I'll show you. This will make you a traditional refrigerator pickled red onion, or if you wanted to make a Mediterranean flavored one, you can add just a few spices to give it that flavor for your brine. So in a saucepan here, I'm going to add the ingredients for our brine. So you're going to use 1 cup of red wine vinegar or white wine vinegar. Either way, it needs to be a 5% acidity vinegar, or you can do a combination of both, which is what I'm going to do today. So I'll do a 1/2 cup of red wine vinegar and a 1/2 cup of white vinegar. And both of those vinegars are 5% acidity, and it's going to go right into this saucepan. Next, we'll add a 1/2 cup of water, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and a 1/2 teaspoon of canning salt. I'm just going to mix those together, and what we're going to do is bring this brine up to a boil. Then once it comes up to a boil, we'll turn that heat down a little bit and we'll allow it to simmer for 3 minutes. In the meantime, you can prepare your red onions. I have about 1 pound or about 3 medium red onions that I've peeled and cut in half and then sliced nice and thin. What I'm going to do is pack them into some mason jars. So I have some pint regular mouth mason jars here. We're just going to tightly pack the sliced red onions into these mason jars. Alright, so now we have all of our prepared sliced red onions packed into 2 pint mason jars. This would also fill 1 quart jar. So now let's just allow our brine to come up to a boil. Now the brine has come up to a boil, so I'm just going to turn it down slightly and we're just going to allow this to simmer for about 3 minutes. Alright, so the brine has been simmering for about 3 minutes, so we're just going to pour this over our sliced red onions in the mason jar here. I'm just going to fill the jar until all the red onions are covered. Now I can just simply add the lid, followed by the ring. Now I'm just going to allow this to cool to room temperature, and then it's going to go into the refrigerator. In the meantime, let's get another batch of this brine going so that we can make a Mediterranean flavored pickled red onion. So again, we'll do the same amounts. 1 cup of vinegar, or a 1/2 cup each of red wine vinegar and white vinegar, 5% acidity. There's a 1/2 cup of the red wine vinegar. I'll do a 1/2 cup of the white vinegar, and a 1/2 cup of water. Now these amounts that I've given you will make 1 pint jar. If you wanted to make 2 pint jars or 1 quart jar, you would just simply double the brine recipe to do that. But typically when I make the pickled red onions, I just do 1 pint jar, and I would just do the recipe like I showed you first, or this Mediterranean flavored one that we'll go over now. So now to this we will add 1 teaspoon of sugar, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. To give it a little bit of extra flavor, we'll do a 1/2 teaspoon of basil, a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, and a 1/2 teaspoon of minced garlic. Now again, we'll mix this together and we'll bring this brine up to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we'll just turn that heat down slightly and allow it to simmer for 3 minutes. We have our jar all ready to go with some sliced red onions here. And then we'll have a jar of traditional pickled red onions and a jar of Mediterranean pickled red onions. And again, I used 1 pound of red onions to do both of these pint jars. So if you just wanted to do 1 pint jar, you would just use about a ½ pound of red onion, maybe about 1 large or about 2 medium red onions. It really just depends on how tightly you pack that onion into the mason jar. So now we'll allow this Mediterranean brine to come to a boil. All right, now the Mediterranean brine has started to come to a boil here. It's been boiling, so I'm going to turn that temperature down a little bit. And now we're going to allow it to simmer for about 3 minutes. Now the Mediterranean brine has been simmering for 3 minutes, so we can add it to our second pint jar here. Enough to cover all of the onion. So we put the lid, followed by the ring, and I'll just allow these to cool to room temperature. Then we can come back and have a closer look, and I can go over how to store these in the refrigerator and what we'd like to use our refrigerator pickled red onions for. All right, here we have our refrigerator pickled red onions. And we did these 2 different ways. On the left, we have the traditional brine, and on the right, we have a Mediterranean brine. So that added some basil and oregano and garlic to that brine, which will give the pickled onions a little different flavor, which will work nicely as a condiment for whatever recipe you like to add it to. Now we like to use pickled red onions for sandwiches and pulled pork, for hamburgers, as well as tacos and nachos, and even fish tacos. You can sprinkle some on top of salads or in wraps. Really, wherever you would like a little pickled bite of onion in your dish. Now these are refrigerator pickled red onions, so now these jars have cooled to room temperature, and now I can store them in the refrigerator. And after about 3 weeks, the flavors will really have melded, and the brine will have a nice pink color, and they'll have some great flavor to them. But really, you can use these as soon as a few hours if you like, and you should use them up within about 3 months. So the recipe that we did together today, I broke the brine down into 1 pint jar amounts so that I can do the 2 different varieties today with you. If you wanted to do 2 pint jars of the same brine or do 1 quart jar, you would just simply double the amount of brine that I made and use the same amount of onions. So I used about 1 pound of red onions, and I cut them in half, then sliced them nice and thin, and I was able to pack them into 2 pint jars. So this quick pickling project with the refrigerator pickled red onions will be a great addition to various meals and snacks and things like that we'll enjoy over the next few months. And it was a really quick and easy project to do in order to make a delicious homemade condiment. So if you'd like more ideas or inspiration on other refrigerator pickling projects, I do have a number of them in my food preservation playlist, as well as a number of water bath canning and pressure canning, dehydrating and freeze drying techniques as well. So if you're looking for ways to preserve the harvest or to make some nice homemade items to keep on your pantry shelf or in the refrigerator in this case maybe, be sure to check that playlist out. And if you're new to the channel or haven't done so yet, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. So please be sure to hit that subscribe button below if you haven't done so yet, and continue to watch my channel, The Home and Homestead, for some more homemade, homegrown, and homestyle inspiration. Well, I hope that you're having a fantastic day. See you next time. Take care.